Ryan Poles said he's going to take the North and never give it back. This quote has been talked about and taken so far out of context that I just had to break it down today. It's been 3 years since Ryan Poles was hired as the general manager of the Chicago Bears. The team has only won 14 games in those 3 seasons, compiling an overall record of just 14-36. This has caused fans to ask for his job and constantly remind people about what Poles said at his introductory press conference.
And the last thing, the most important piece is we're going to take the North and never give it back.
But besides that one quote that people love to take out of context, what did Ryan Poles really say? And more importantly, 3 years later, has he done what he said he was going to do? Let's start out by evaluating the quote. This is what Ryan Poles said. What am I about and what's my philosophy? We are going to build through the draft. We are going to acquire young, fast, and physical football players. We are going to be selective in free agency and connect evaluation with valuation. We will have a relentless approach to fixing our weaknesses. We are going to consistently put players in a position to succeed. And then, finally, the last thing, the most important piece, we will take the North and not give it back. So now that we've actually went over the entire statement again, let's break it down and talk about how Ryan Poles has performed at doing what he said he was going to do. The first thing he said is we are going to build through the NFL draft. Let's just take a quick look back to Ryan Pace's last 3 drafts, just to get an idea of what we were doing as far as building through the draft before we hired Ryan Poles. Oh, that's right. We weren't. Thanks to our previous GM, we had only made one first round pick in 4 years. Absolutely the opposite of how Ryan Poles wanted to build. Our previous GM put this team in a position to make just one selection in the first round from 2018 until 2022. Meanwhile, Ryan Poles has now selected 3 players in the top 10 of the first round, just 1 year apart, and has now locked up another top 10 pick next year. That is building through the draft. So he's about to have 4 times the amount of first round talent in a much shorter period of time. Ryan Poles really is building through the NFL draft. But what about his next statement? Acquiring young, fast, and physical football players. Looking around our roster, and you see that it's loaded with players under the age of 25 that all scored very high on their relative athletic scores. That again sounds exactly like what Ryan Poles said he would do. Acquire young, fast, and physical football players. That honestly describes most of his high draft picks as well. Guys such as Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, Rome Odunze, Gervon Dexter, and more. But then his next statement was that he was going to be selective in free agency. And this is the one that everyone wants to overlook. They continue wanting to blast our general manager for not overspending in free agency to fix this offensive line. But he told us from day one that he was not going to do that. The plan all along has always been to be selective in free agency, build through the draft, and not overspend on bad contracts. He even went further into this, mentioning that they were going to connect evaluation with valuation. That means not overpaying and not putting this franchise in a bad spot going forward, retaining flexibility. And Ryan Poles again has done that. Really, the only bad contract he's written in 3 years is the one that belongs to Nate Davis, and he's already gotten out of that one. So Poles has again done exactly what he said he would do here, not handicapping this franchise with poorly written contracts and overpaying for old aging veterans. But then our GM talked about one more thing before mentioning taking the North. He talked about consistently putting players in a position to succeed, another very important aspect of a GM's job. And he's done a better job of that with our quarterback than any of our previous GMs. Let's just briefly remember what kind of situation Our last two first round quarterbacks were put in. Neither Mitch Trubisky nor Justin Fields were ever put in a position to succeed. Justin had offensive lines that featured Sam Mustipher and Larry Borum as starters. Mitch had a supporting cast of Josh Bellamy, Kendall Wright, Marcus Wheaton, and Deion Sims. I've seen more talent at skill positions on XFL rosters, and I'm not even kidding. So when you compare the situation that Poles put our rookie QB in, arguably surrounding him with the best skill position talent of any number one pick in history, and again, Ryan Poles is doing what he said he would do. He is building through the NFL draft. He is acquiring young, talented players. He's being selective in free agency, and he's putting these guys in a position to succeed. Nowhere in that statement did Ryan Poles say anything about this being a quick process. He didn't say anything about it happening in the first or second year. But fans want to continue blasting him for not taking the North in his first 3 years. He talked about this the entire time. Building through the draft is not an overnight process. It is something that takes time. And most of our fan base in the media simply fail to understand that. This is a guy who got hired and has done exactly what he told us he would do. And somehow fans are trying to turn that around on him. But not only did I rewatch the press conference and take notes, but I'm also going to link it for you guys in the description below. Don't just take my word for it. Go rewatch the presser yourself. Listen to what Ryan Poles said and answer honestly. Is Ryan Poles doing what he said he would do? I think it's clear to anyone with common sense that Ryan Poles is executing his plan that he set out from day one, the day he was hired. His plan has been clear cut from day one, yet there are so many fans and media personalities that want to act like he's not doing what he said he would do. All they care about are wins and losses, and they love to blast our general manager for the quote about taking the North. The only problem is they don't even remember anything Poles actually said in that presser, and most people are just using his words out of context. Again, it's a result of a microwave society that demands instant results. But this has always been a 3 to 5 year rebuild, and Ryan Poles has been clear about that from day one. Yes, this was still a disappointing season, and firing Matt Eberflus is definitely a setback. We have to fix this offensive line, and we have to get the head coaching hire right. But it's our fan base that seems to have forgotten what Ryan Poles said. There are some of us out there that understand what our general manager is doing, and we see the vision of his philosophy. And then there are a lot of other fans who wouldn't understand context if it smacked them in the mouth. Ryan Poles has always planned to take the North and never give it back. But he never planned to do that overnight. He always planned to do that in a 3 to 5 year rebuild. This is year three, and we're not 100% on track with where we should be, but our future is still just as bright as it's ever been. We just have to fix the O line and get the head coaching job right. Thanks to everybody who watches. Please remember to hit that like button for me. I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned, and until next time, bear down.